Hi everyone, and welcome back to another masterclass by FitGamer. Today we are going to be doing a duelist guide. This is the strongest comp in high elo right now, at least on the NA server, so it's super important to know how to play this comp and how to get your free LP. I'm Upsetmax, the patch is currently 14.10b, and let's get straight into it. So this is going to be a guide just focusing on this specific composition, and then we'll be talking about how to optimize your items, optimize your augments, and optimize your positioning, especially against other current meta boards. Then we'll talk about exactly what to do at each stage of the game in order to play this composition, and then how to cap out with your final board. Last but not least, we'll do a recap at the end, and then we'll do a Q&A for anyone who is in the voice channel watching this live. Okay, so before we get started, we're going to do a little bit of terminology just so everybody knows what we are talking about. We'll be talking about a numerous amount of stages in today's lesson. So when we say a stage number, let's say like 2-1 or 3-2, basically the first number is going to be the stage number and the second one is the round. So if we say 2-1, this just means stage 2, round 1 is a short-term version. A couple other terms: sitting is basically not rolling and saving your gold once you've hit a specific board state. This is either from hitting your board state from a good augment or hitting a specific unit or hitting specific 2-star unit. Regardless, you've reached a strong enough board state where you can just afford to not roll anymore and start saving up your money. Stabilizing, kind of similar. It's basically doing an action until you have a strong enough board where you can either win all or at least most of your rounds for the rest of the stage. So you can sometimes hear, oh, you roll down till you stabilize, and then you start bumping levels. That's what stabilizing is. All in is either at a good interval for your leveling, or if you just have very low HP and you're about to die, basically sending it to leveling and rolling all your gold to create your strongest board and playing for your highest placements. That is what all inning is. And then last but not least, kind of a new one I added, single target versus AoE. So there's a couple of different boards that we'll be talking about that have different outputs. So there are single target boards, which are really good at sending or at least killing one enemy unit at a time, like dealing a lot of damage, but only to one unit. Or there's going to be a couple boards that deal a moderate amount of damage to many or all enemy units at a time. So it's basically like guaranteed like killing one at a time or dealing a good amount of damage to a lot of different units. So that's single target versus AoE. So just a couple terms to start off our terminology before we get into the actual composition. And let's get into the intro. So vertical duelist, this is going to be a level 8+ physical damage composition. And it is going to be a composition that requires a lot of swords. I did touch upon this in our latest video, the best 5 comps to play. However, because this is the best comp right now, we are going to be doing more of an in-depth guide. This is going to be your default melee composition, so no more Kayn, Lee Sin duo. Vertical duelists definitely are able to be stronger than that. And this is a tempo composition, and since we are physical damage, we do need some sort of sunder, either a Last Whisper or even Shroud, or if we are rather high in tempo, we can get that Aurelia and then forego the previous Sunder items. So 2 main traits we'll be playing around. Of course, we're going to be doing vertical duelists, so we can start off at the 2 breakpoint, and then we'll be playing around the 4 breakpoint around stage 3, but by stage 4, we will have the 6 breakpoint in where we start getting that damage reduction. Of course, duelists, the more times or each time you attack, you get attack speed up to a maximum of 12 stacks. Then Dragon Lord, we've talked about this, it's been around for a while. After 8 seconds, basically, a dragon will strike the board, and then based off your effect, you will deal X amount of damage to the enemy board, gain attack speed for your allies. The main part is for Dragon Lord, because that is when the stun comes in, and it's a full 1.5 second stun for the entire enemy board, or I guess stunning the entire enemy board, which is going to be super good for us because Duelist is a rather fast-paced composition, so that 1.5 seconds is actually really important. Our main carry is going to be Lee Sin, 4-cost units. Although he technically did get nerfed recently with his HP, it's still a very good strong unit. With a mana pool of 100, what he does is when he casts, he kicks the target he is hitting, and then it hits not only mana reads them, it also stuns them, and then also hits other units by the enemy's spirit. Also, you gain a shield, and you grant yourself your own shield that scales with AP. So we'll talk about how to itemize Lee Sin for 3 seconds. And then that's his kit. One thing to note that a lot of people don't know is his ultimate actually scales with attack speed. So that's why playing vertical duelists, like, of course, it really enhances Lee Sin, and you will deal more damage the more attack speed you have. So that's a quick intro into the duelist composition. Now we are going to get more into the objectives and itemization. So objectives, we talked about what it is. Now we talk about why we play this. Well, first off, just reiterating, physical damage composition, and this is more of an auto attack based composition, not only because of the duelist trait, because our auto attacks actually deal a good amount of damage along with our abilities, but this is mostly an auto attack based composition. This is very good, very strong composition against enemy low roll boards and especially AoE boards, because we are a melee sustain composition. So boards that don't do a lot of single target damage towards us, we are able to fare very well against and just sustain up against them. This is a strong composition that can cap really high with 4 Dragon Lord. Like I mentioned on the previous slide, getting that 1.5 second stun is really important. And last but not least, in regarding items, we have an AD Bruiser holder, which is going to be our Lee Sin, and then backline AD item holders, which is going to be our Tristana until we find Irelia. I'll talk about more about itemization on the next slide, but this is just kind of talk about showing what we're talking about. And then this is going to be our level 8 board ideally, where we hit that Wukong Irelia. But don't worry, I'll be showing what to play in case we don't hit those 5 cost legendaries. That's a quick intro into what the comp is and the objective. Now let's dive into the itemization. So there are 3 main categories of items that we'll be playing and using. So the first one is going to be Lee Sin. Lee Sin is going to be our main carry, at least our main frontline carry, and he will be holding our bruiser items. So what does this mean? It means that we need to be building healing, titans, and then our last item can be either another healing, a defensive item, or a second titans. So what defensive is? Defensive is either Quicksilver or Steric, and then healing is either Bloodthirster or Hodge. I think Gunblade is okay as well, but I think the other 2 are better. So some good scenarios or some good combinations. BT Titans Steric is very strong. It's kind of your go-to. BT Titans plus another BT is also very strong as well, although it seems kind of counterintuitive. Double healing is very good in this composition. Also the shield, you just have a larger shield. BT Titans or BT Hodge and QS is very good into very CC heavy compositions, such as Sage Lillia. And then also last but not least, we want to make sure that we are still building correctly with following this like healings, titans, and then +1. So we don't want to be building anything like Titans, Steric with no healing. That is not very good for our build path. So that's how you want to be building your Lee Sin. This is going to be your primary bruiser item holder. And then early game, you'll be putting these items either on your Darius 2 or your Kiana, depending on what you have at the time and what is 2-starred. And then eventually you'll be moving them to Lee Sin once you hit a Lee Sin. That's the first category. The second category is going to be Tristana / Irelia. So Tristana is going to be holding your Irelia items, and items like this are going to be your red buff / Morello. Morello is fine too. It's one of the only ways to kill Rod in this composition, apart from Gunblade or Crown Guard, so Morello is perfectly fine. Gunblade, Runons, and Deathblade are all also very good items to hold on Tristana, and then eventually transfer them over to Irelia. The very last one is going to be Volibear. So we are no longer in that level 7 3-star Volibear, 3-star Tristana meta. Volibear is now simply going to be holding our tank items. So whatever leftover tank items we have, we're going to throw them on Volibear. Like Redemption is very good. That way we could put Volibear adjacent to our Lee Sin, and Lee Sin gets that healing plus DR. But apart from that, just any like Stoneplate, Even Shroud for some Sunder, Crown Guard, Adaptive. He is just going to be no longer our BT Titans Volibear. He is going to be our tank bear. So this is what to do with our craftable items. Next, we'll be talking about support items. So our melee, since we are a melee composition, we are able to benefit from a lot of the support items, which makes augments such as stationary support, support cache, or even just any support item, anvils, very good in this composition, especially from Vine Vintage. So as you see here, remember, the lower the delta, the better. So Moonstone is the best item in this composition, being able to just shield your units, and then you want to put your Moonstone on a backline carry that will stay alive, so either Tristana or Irelia. Both of these are fine. And remember, if you have 3 item slots or 3 damage items on your Irelia, then just, or if you have 3 possible items that you can put on Irelia, then just put on Tristana instead, of course. Other really good items that I want to shout out. So Banshee's Veil is very good. You just put it on your front line, like even Volibear is fine. And then give your Lee Sin that immunity to crowd control. This is really good in Duelist because this ensures that you are never going to be CC'd. You can auto attack freely until you reach your cap, and then reach and output your maximum DPS. Other really good ones are just support items that either just help your team out generally through like Shred, Sunder, or healing reduction like Eternal Flame or Obsidian. But the main ones are going to be support items that help your units stay alive longer and give your units some tank. Because our front line is both our tank and our melee carry, items such as Locket and Randuin's, being able to make them tankier and give your your frontline some like pseudo tankiness is very important. So Locket, Randuin's, and Aegis are all very good as well. Basically, you can use a large variety of support items in this composition, and support items are just very good. So that is how you distribute and prioritize your support items. And then last but not least, artifacts. Definitely not as good as support anvils, and also there are so many artifacts now, it's very easy to miss and hit some ones that are not ideal. However, some good ones: Corrupt Vampiric Scepter. If you do have this, then you can put it on your Aurelia, it is fine. Zanya's, you just put it on your Wukong to keep him alive and get him to cast more often. But the main ones, as you can see from the games played, is going to be Mittens. If you do have Mittens, then definitely put that on your Lee Sin. Immunity to chills, increase attack speed, and increase movement speed, and a lot of attack speed. So very good. It's basically like a tiny but deadly in the form of an item, and Lee Sin likes that a lot. So if you are able to get an artifact, then either go for Mittens or like Death's Defiance. These two I'd say are the best in this comp. Okay, moving on to our augments, and then we're going to go into our positioning and then what to do for each stage. So another reason why this composition is so good is because it benefits from so many augments and is able to really capitalize off them. So the ones in bold are the best ones. Duelist Crest or Crown. This is really good. It allows us to do two things. Number one, it allows us to fit 6 duelists on stage 3 rather easily, because we no longer need to play Lee Sin to get 6 duelists in. And 6 duelists, remember, is when we get our damage reduction. And it's just an insane amount of stats. The attack speed mixed with the damage reduction, especially on stage 3 with good units. So that's what Duelist Crown allows us to do. Also later allows us to drop another duelist to play for Dragon Lord easier. And then Extended Duel, being able to like stack up your stacks faster because you already have 2. And then Omnivamp is good. Keepers is one of the best augments, if not the best augment for this comp. Once again, is providing pseudo frontline for a frontline that does not exist. So that way you would just clump up all your units together, and then everybody would get a shield, and then it's just very strong. Basically almost guarantees your duelist units to get at least closer to their full stack of attack speed, and you're just able to like tank through boards, sustain through boards, and deal a lot of damage. Last but not least, Fine Vintage is the last good one, being able to get a lot of support items, as I mentioned on the previous slide. And in this case, you would just prioritize your Lee Sin items, and then you just have your 3 Lee Sin items and a lot of support items buffing him up. Other augments are essentially just combat augments or any like support and augments. So like I'll just go through them quick. Like Martyr is very good, Gargantuan Resolve, because we are building Titans. Harvest's healing is always very good, especially in melee compositions. Silver Veil is basically a budget Banshees. Gives from the Fallen Mist support is support. Unify Resistance, it just ties into that like pseudo tankiness for our frontline composition. Tiny but Deadly, although we are getting a lot of attack speed from Duelists, starting attack speed is actually quite good because that allows us to get our auto attacks in faster and start stacking up even faster. So kind of think of it like a Rage Blade. Yes, Rage Blade will give you more attack speed as you attack, but if you start with a higher base attack speed or higher starting attack speed, you will be able to get those stacks even faster, and then more stacks equals even more stacks. So that's the first part, but tiny but deadly. And then the second one, having that increased movement speed is going to reduce the downtime, or at least like increase the uptime of our units attacking. So instead of wasting time walking around, we'll be able to zip to them and start attacking, and then also in some case wrap to the enemy backline. So tiny is definitely very good, and then more support. We have more combat augments, and then you have my sword is if you need an extra sword component, which is quite often the case because we use a lot of swords such as BT and Sterix. So those are some augments to go about if you are playing this composition. There's plenty and they all help you out. We're going to move on now to some positioning against meta compositions. So the first one is going to be Ashe Snipers. Very meta composition, you see this all the time, and here is how to position against it. So it's actually quite Lee Sin favored as long as you have a decent board and they're not like a Fortune Casho or a crazy capped sniper board. Our goal is to be as close to Ashe as possible in order to reduce the sniper damage. Remember, with snipers want to be positioned as far away as possible from the enemy carries or enemy threats, enemy units, to really make use of their sniper value and deal more damage. So by positioning same side as close as to Ashe, her damage is reduced by a lot because she is no longer able to snipe from a long range. She is now just attacking closest target, which is close to her. One other thing to note is Ashe is a scaling comp and not a burst comp. So because she has Rage Blade and she's just not a single target burst composition, our Lee Sin will be able to sustain through it, stack up his Titans, stack up his auto attacks, and knock at one shot. And also the frontline in Ashe is not insane. There's no 4-cost carry main tank. Nihilus is more of a CC bot than actually a tank. So then we just have to get through the Amumus and Alawis, and that is going to be quite easily, especially if we have Sunder and then we make it into the backline. So this is how you want to be positioning against snipers. And if you are a sniper player, then make sure you are positioned away from the enemy carries, so away from this side. In this case, putting Ashe on this side would be a lot better. So then you kill these units that are very easy to kill, and then you start activating your sniper trait by attacking further and dealing more damage that way. So that is how to position against snipers and as snipers in this specific matchup. Remember, as duelists, you want to make sure that your Tristana and Aurelia are your same side, because this is going to be your strong side, where you have all your damage focus, and then these are just like your trait bots. They don't do anything, they just provide to the traits. That was the first one against snipers. The second one is going to be against Lillia. So this one is going to be even easier for us, us being the duelist. You want to same side the Lillia and try to get to the backline ASAP. So Lillia and Morgana, the reason why this board is quite easy is because they are an AoE, so area of effect damage composition, and they don't have a lot of single target bursts, especially not for Morgana. Lily has some, but the orbs, like, you have to be basically the last unit standing. So what does this mean? Because we are not getting one shot again, this allows our Duelist and Lee Sin to sustain through the damage, fully stack up everything, and eventually just become unkillable. Other things to note, the front line in Lillia Morg is also not insane, so you can get to the front line and make it to the back line quite easily if you have Sunder. And then the other thing you can do, if you are worried, let's say you have like a 1-star Lee Sin, which happens some of the times, or like, let's say like either the Lillia or Morgana, they're super decked out, maybe with a Radiant item, etc. Something you can note is just like clumping together your non-core units to bait Lillia ults, or to bait Morgana ults, to bait Lillia small orbs, and then keep your main units, so like a Volibear with a Redemption and your Lee Sin paired together, and then your Aurelia on her own isolated, so then she does not receive any of the Morgana ults or the Lillia orbs, especially if she is on the same side as the Lillia. So that is how you'd position against the Lillia. And then, I'm gonna be honest, if you're playing as the Lillia, this composition is just very hard to beat. You don't have the single target damage to get to kill and one-shot Lee Sin, so you're kind of just praying that you take a good loss, or your board is just like a lot better than theirs and able to just stat check them. And then the very last one is going to be Syndra. And I brought this up not because Syndra is a good comp, but because Syndra is going to be Duelist's hardest matchup. And the reason why is, compared to the other two, where you have like AoE, or you have stacking, or you have just no single target damage, Syndra is both a stall comp that has single target burst. So this is why we cannot position the same side as Syndra. If this was reversed and Lee Sin is over here and Volibear is over here, then their Syndra is going to be bursting and single target damaging our Lee Sin. And once Lee Sin is dead, our board crumbles. So unless we have like Aurelia too. So what we have to do in this composition is position away from the Syndra and just pray that we can kill through the enemy board before the Syndra starts ulting the Lee Sin. One thing to note is, if the Syndra is weak, so like it's not best in slot items, maybe they don't have any heal reduction or they don't have any shred, then what you can do is still position same side. You could put the Volibear on the corner, so then Volibear is getting hit first instead of Lee Sin, and then try to brute force your way towards the Syndra in that case, especially if Ornn is not on the same side protecting the Syndra. So that's a niche case. If not, then just position opposite side and just hope. Definitely the Duelist's hardest matchup against Syndra, but Syndra loses to basically everything else. So Syndra loses to Ashe most of the time, Syndra loses to Lillia Morgana most of the time. So it's kind of like a rock, paper, scissors, but the Syndra comp is just like not that good, except for against Duelists. So that wraps up our positioning, and that wraps up our itemization and augmentation. We are now going to be talking about what to do regarding our stage plan and how to formulate our board at each stage of the game. So starting off with stage 1+2, one thing to note is Duelist is a tempo comp. This means that we want to be trying to win streak stage 2 and not lose streaking and then pivoting into Duelist. Remember, off of your stage 1, try to play off of your unit orbs. So look and keep an eye out for any Kianas or Yoriks. These fare very well for our early game. And then if we're lucky, we get 3-cost drops, and any Volibears or Tristanas are extremely high roll. As you're just buying your shops, make sure to hold any Dariuses, Malphites, or Yasuos. These will help us construct the strongest board on 2-1. And then when 2-1 comes, if you have a Darius 2, your items go on Darius 2. And if not, if you just have Kiana 1 and Darius 1, then put your items on the Kiana instead. This is going to be our ideal board on 2-1 stage level 4, where we have 2 Behemoth, 2 Duelist, 2 Heavenly, 2 Umbral. And Umbral is extremely good early game. Just a flat shield is just a lot of effective HP and will allow our units to get some serious damage in and not get one shot. Last thing to note is Kiana positioning. It's really important for her to be on the edges to try to to work with her ability a bit better, where she repositions to hit as many units as possible. If she is in the front line, sometimes she's blocked off, and then also we need her to not get hit first and our tanks to get hit first by the enemy carries that are normally in the corner of the enemy board. So hence the positioning, and then also just we have Umbral in, so in this case the Umbral hex would be like this, and then if it's on the opposite side, then the Umbral hex will be like this, and we would just position like mirror flipped. So that is our plan for stage 1 and stage 2. Now we move on to stage 3, the fun part. On stage 3, you're either going to be playing ideally 4 Duelists, and if not, then you can just play 4 Heavenly. And we are going to be on level 6 on stage 3-2. Now, our 3-2 augments hopefully can help us win streak the rest of stage 3. If we're able to hit a Keepers or a Duelist +1 especially, both are extremely good in that spot, then we will hopefully try to, or that will help us win streak stage 3, and that way, Keepers is just one of the best comps. I already explained why in the augments. And then also Duelist +1. Remember, if we have this, then we don't need Lee Sin, and we are able to play 6 Duelists on stage 3, which is going to be extremely strong once we hit that Volibear Tristana. If not, then you could go level 7 on 3-5, especially if you're win streaking or just like have a lot of gold or tempoing. Try to fit in 6 duelists if possible, if not, just play your strongest board. One thing to note regarding items, make sure you prioritize your Lee Sin items over your Tristana and Aurelius. So don't be trying to prioritize any like backline Gunblade or Red Buff. Make sure you get those 3 Lee Sin's item down ASAP, so then when you're rolling down on stage 4, you could transfer them over immediately. One last thing, make sure that your frontline units are tanking for your Kiana and Darius. So if you're either playing like the 4 Duelist version, where you're just adding in your Tristana, maybe you only have Yasuo at the time, and if you find a Volibear, then replace this for a Volibear. As I mentioned, make sure your tanks are tanking for your Duelist first, allowing them to stack up. And if you're playing the 4 Heavenly version, same thing, make sure that your tanks are getting hit first and not your main carry. If you have a lot of pairs on 3-2, or you want to preserve your streak, or you're really close to spiking, let's say you're like 3 out of 4 duelists and you have a lot of hits, then you can roll a little bit on 3-2, but you want to save most of your rolling on stage 8 or on stage 4, level 8 to try to hit that Lee Sin. This is going to be your plan for stage 3. 4 duelists, extremely strong. Even if you have like a 2-item Kiana, you should win at least most of your rounds if you have a good setup and good augments. Okay, now we're going to be talking about stage 4+. So there are some key parts on 4-2. I include 4-5 here, but this is going to be very rare cases. Let's say is like no one's playing Duelist. This would be like in trainer sentinels, and like no one has a Duelist and you're kind of poor. But most of the time you have to be going on 4-2 level 8 because of how contested this composition is. Level to 8 and then roll until you have 6 Duelists and then 2 filler units. Most of the time you are going to be heavily contested, which is why I recommend the 4-2. And if you are heavily contested, you see that a lot of players are going to either want to be playing Lee Sin or they already have Lee Sin, then it's fine to sit on a stable 1-star version of this board and try to go level 9, because that will allow us to find the Irelia and Wukong, which is extremely mandatory in this composition in order to place high. The placement of finding one Irelia or finding Wukong versus not is huge. So in that case, if we are not able to hit Lee Sin anyway because we're heavily contested, or at least Lee Sin 2 anyway, then we could at least try to go level 9, not roll too much, sit on a semi-stable board, and then roll on level 9 to get the Irelia and Wukong. Remember, Diana will get played as soon as you get Wukong, but if you don't have Wukong, then it's better to play other units. Diana without Wukong only gives you Dragon Lord, which is not that good because just 2 Dragon Lord gives you attack speed 8 seconds in, and it's not even starting attack speed, which will allow us to get our duelist stacks faster, so it just doesn't really do anything, and she's not even that tanky of a unit. So here are the 2 boards that you'll be playing on stage 4 on your level 8 roll down. If it is, I guess we'll play for the high roll. The high roll level 8 is we hit both Wukong and Irelia. We sell our current Tristana, we have a replacement hopefully, and we move our items to our Irelia, either like a DB, Gunblade, Red Buff, Runons, these are all fine. And we have our Lee Sin, Wukong, Diana, and then remember, since we have the Wukong, then we play the Diana for Sage. This is going to be our ideal board. Even on a 1-star version like this, we can easily go level 9 if we're contested and we cannot find the rest of the Lee Sins. If we do not hit the Irelia or the Wukong, this happens most of the time just because they're legendary units, then we will have to play the low roll version of our level 8 board where we are playing around the Malphite and Yorick. These are just the 2 best units for now. Malphite, Heavenly will give our entire board resistances, which is very good. And then Yorick will give our entire board Umbral, or not entire board, but give most of our board Umbral as well. And then if you have like, if you're rolling down and for some reason you have like item excess based off the region, you can also play like a Silas too, which will give us Umbral. Basically, this is just playing like a low roll level 8 duelist board, and then from there you can see like, okay, am I stable enough to try to go level 9 off of this, or do I have to roll back down later for at least like Lee Sin 2, etc. So these are the 2 boards that you will be playing on level 8, depending on how your roll down goes. Hopefully you hit that high roll, and then we are going to want to cap it out once you're stabilized and able to go level 9 or level 10. One thing to note is comparing traits, 6 duelists plus 4 Dragon Lords is better than 8 duelists. You might think, oh, 8 duelists insta win. No, it's good, very good, but 6 duelists and 4 Dragon Lords is better. As you've noticed already, regarding our positioning, we have basically like a strong side, and then we have like, I guess it is a weak side. Our strong side, we want to put our key units, which is going to be endgame, basically just our Lee Sin, Wukong, and Irelia. Volibear sometimes if we need to like avoid getting hit first, like on this side, if we're against like, I don't know, some board. But most of the time it's just going to be our Lee Sin, Wukong, and Irelia. Because of the Irelia change, she now attacks the closest unit. And remember, her blades applied Sunder, so we want to be on the same side as the Lee Sin. So whatever the Lee Sin is attacking, our Irelia is reducing their armor. Remember to clump against the same side against AoE. And then if you're against single target damage, to position opposite side. And then we ideally want to be getting 4 Dragon Lord in, but until that happens, you can either just play another Sage like Morgana or Soraka if you're missing that Janna slot. Or if you just want to play it for Heavenly, or maybe you have some Ultrist in. So a couple of different flex units as we try to make our way to 4 Dragon Lords, but 4 Dragon Lord is definitely going to be our end game. And then these are our end game boards, depending whether or not we have a Duelist emblem or no Duelist emblem. We also end up itemizing our Wukong, Blue Buff, Bloodthirster, Edge of Night. These are all fine on Wukong. Okay, and that wraps up everything for today. Today was a super in-depth guide on how to play the strongest composition currently, the vertical duelist into capped out Dragon Lord composition. I'll recap everything and then we will end it off there. So today we talked about a couple of different things. We talked about what the composition is. We talked about why we play the composition, and then we broke down the itemization, the augments, and positioning of the board. Then we went into a stage plan and talked about exactly what to do each stage. Regarding stage 1, playing a strong stage 2, we're tempoing, even stronger stage 3, playing either 4 duelists or 4 heavily, and then getting that 6 duelists in by stage 4-2, and then assessing whether we need to roll back down, or if we could try going level 9, getting that earlier recon, and hopefully capping out our aim. I showed the final board, which will hopefully get us that first, and that is it. So thank you so much for coming to today's class. Make sure to join the Discord and check out these classes live, and subscribe to try to get that Cloud9 jersey. We're now going to do a Q&A for those who are in the chat or the live classes, and answer any questions that they have. So thank you. Have a great night.